So Congress has proposed a bill that aims to use millions of our tax dollars to attack our Second Amendment rights. So let's talk about this. But real quick, before we jump into this video, if you think the federal government needs to stop infringing on our Second Amendment rights, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I also want to thank one of the main supporters of the channel, and that is USCCA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, I highly recommend you take a look into USCCA, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. I also want to let you know that this content is powered by the Firearms Policy Coalition, so head on over to joinfpc.org to help support the Second Amendment cause. Thank you again, Firearms Policy Coalition, for supporting this channel. So like I said in the intro, Congress has introduced a bill which seeks to use millions of our taxpayer dollars to attack our very own Second Amendment rights. The bill we're going to be talking about in this video is HB 4505. HB 4505 is also known as the Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies Appropriations Act of 2022. And this aims to use millions of our taxpayer dollars towards attacking our Second Amendment rights, pretty much hiding it in the guise of an appropriations bill. Now, for those of you who are not aware, appropriations bills are essentially spending and funding bills that determine how much the federal government is going to spend in various kind of agencies and sectors of our government. Now, we have seen in the past that Congress has hidden various programs and also has attacked our fundamental rights through appropriation bills. And this bill is no different. Here, Congress is hiding about $140 million worth of spending to attack our Second Amendment rights, and they hide it in this appropriations bill on about page 74 of like 150 pages. Now, this spending bill seeks to fund attacks on our Second Amendment rights in three distinct and different ways. So let's talk about those three different ways that this appropriation bill is trying to fund Second Amendment attacks. First, this appropriations bill seeks to give about $90 million towards community violence intervention initiatives. So that's what they are saying they are going to give $90 million to. Now, when you hear community violence intervention initiatives, you may think that this doesn't sound like it applies to gun rights. And at first glance, it doesn't necessarily apply to gun rights, but in practicality and in real world experience, what we've seen is funding of these types of programs actually just shifts money into the pockets of gun violence prevention organizations. And very popular gun violence organizations that everybody is pretty much aware of is organizations like Everytown, Giffords, and these organizations that are focused primarily on just stripping you of your Second Amendment rights in America. And we've seen this play out in the past at the federal level and also at various state levels. With appropriation bills like this and programs like this, money is allocated to community violence programs, but it never actually finds its way into these communities that need it the most, like Chicago and LA, which face major gun violence and gang violence issues. Not necessarily even gun violence, because gun violence isn't really a thing, primarily just crime and gang issues in these communities. And generally, this money should be going to those communities and helping those communities actually combat these issues. But really what happens with these types of appropriation bills is it just ends up in the pockets of anti-gun organizations. So essentially the first thing that this appropriation bill will do is give $90 million and put that money in the pockets of anti-gun organizations who want to strip you of your Second Amendment rights. Now, the next thing that this bill does is it spends about $40 million and it goes towards the incentivization program for red flag and gun licensing laws. So you heard that right. The federal government is going to spend about $40 million to incentivize more states to implement red flag laws and gun permitting. Now, for those of you who do not know what red flag laws are, or you're just not familiar with that term, at its most basic level, red flag laws authorize courts to issue a special type of protection order, and it allows the police to temporarily confiscate firearms from people who are deemed by a judge to be danger to themselves or to others. Often these types of requests or red flags come from individuals like relatives, wives, husbands, friends, and in some states even co-workers can red flag an individual and have their firearms confiscated because they're saying that they are worried that this person is maybe suicidal, may harm themselves, or maybe even harm others. And red flag laws are used by anti-gun states to strip people of their rights to possess firearms without due process. This is because many of these laws require firearms to be removed from your possession before a court has ever even adjudicated that you are a danger to yourself or to others. So red flag laws don't just violate your Second Amendment rights, but they also fly in the face of your due process rights under the 5th and 14th Amendments. So red flag laws are a great concern to a lot of us that are pro-gun and pro-Second Amendment because it directly attacks your right to possess firearms, and it does so, and you can be stripped of those rights without due process. Well, here you have Congress trying to appropriate about $40 million to incentivize states to put in place these types of laws. Now, another thing you heard in this section that the $40 million will go towards is incentivizing gun licensing laws. So essentially that translates to the federal government is going to pay various states that don't have kind of issue laws or concealed carry permit requirements, and it's going to incentivize them to pass various permitting laws and restrictions. So you may live in a state that has really good concealed carry laws or open carry laws, but here you have the federal government saying they're going to hang a $40 million carrot over the heads of a bunch of states and see who bites and who will pass and put in place more restrictions on concealed carry, open carry, and if they do so, the federal government is going to cut them a big fat check. Now, the last thing that this appropriations bill will do is it's going to spend about $10 million on a pilot program for gun buybacks and relinquishments. So essentially, Congress is going to shift over $10 million of your own tax money to then try and buy back your own property. And it's not really a gun buyback because we know the federal government never actually possessed these firearms. This is your property. But essentially, they're just going to say, we'll pay you your own money for your own property. And this should be concerning because in my eyes, this would also be the federal government dipping their toes into a national level gun buyback, similar to those performed in nations like Australia. We have heard various politicians on multiple occasions, and those individuals on the left for many, many years, say that they would love to have the laws that Australia has and perform similar buybacks that Australia did. To me, this sounds like a small-scale trial run so that the federal government can kind of work out the kinks, dip their toes in this issue of gun buybacks, see how people react, and then after they kind of work out all the problems, figure out what program works, then they're going to try to implement it at a larger scale, maybe even shift over even more money towards this program, and then try to pass legislation that actually mandates these gun buybacks. So as you can see, what this appropriations bill seeks to do is really concerning, and we should all be very wary about the federal government shifting over so much money towards actually attacking and infringing on your Second Amendment rights. So if you do not agree with what this bill is trying to do, what the appropriations and this money is going to go towards, please contact your local representatives and let them know that you do not agree with Congress using your tax money to attack your Second Amendment rights. Also, I want to take this opportunity real quick to mention that I have started a podcast that will air every single Monday morning. So as of right now, I'm going to try to do at least one episode every week on Monday. A podcast is something that people have called for a long time, so I just figured I would try it out. Also, I created a backup YouTube channel where I will be posting the podcast episodes along with other content. I did this because I want a backup channel just in case, just in the worst case scenario that something happens to this main channel. I just want to have somewhere where people can still actually see my videos and would still have access to me if this main channel got shut down. So make sure you subscribe to the new channel. That's where the podcast will be on YouTube. And also I'll place some other content, maybe stuff that doesn't necessarily fit on the main channel. And also if you're just interested in the podcast at large and you don't want to watch it on YouTube, it will be available as well on various platforms like Spotify, Google Podcast, iTunes. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. It signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos, in this type of two-way news, and then it pushes it to more people. So thank you to everybody who's liked, commented, and subscribed. You guys have helped this channel explode. We are reaching more people than ever, and that's all because of everybody who watches, comments, subscribes, likes the video. So thank you so much for doing that. Go ahead and drop a comment down below that you're commenting to fuel the algorithm. And also if you're a new subscriber, make sure you comment down below that you're a new subscriber and I will make sure I comment back to you. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.